All right, bang. The kid is back, ready for part 5. Today we're going to be going over my UFC top 25 welterweights. If you haven't seen the last few parts, these are ranked on all kinds of different things. Basically, the biggest factor is who I think would win in a fight right now. But career trajectory is also factored into it, as well as just like who I think is a better fighter, just based upon the eye test. All right, but anyways, without further ado, let's jump right into this thing. Starting off with number 25, we have Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews, he's solid. He's young. He's 30 years old. Pretty good everywhere, to be honest. But hasn't really been able to put it together and make a big run here in the UFC. He does have a few. He's had a few tough fights. Like he has a loss to Sean Brady. He's got a loss to Michael Morales, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Has a win over the Leech. That's probably his best win. Yeah, not much to say really about Jake Matthews. So moving on, number 24, we have Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Dos Santos. There's no T at the end. He's older now. He's 38 years old, but he's got some good wins. He's got a win over BSD we talked about last video, and I actually forgot about this when I was making this video and going back through. He has a win over Sean Strickland back when Strickland was at welterweight. Yeah, he's big. He's powerful. He's not great. He's pretty well rounded, but yeah, he's just mainly powerful. He's getting older, so he's slowing down significantly. But yeah, he still looks good. He lost to Randy Brown not too long ago. He took Renat Fakhretdinov to a draw, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, in his old age, he's really not doing as much anymore, but still has that power. As I say, that's the last thing to go. So anyways, let's move on now to number 23. I have Oban Elliott. Oban Elliott's undefeated in the UFC. He's not great anywhere, but he's good everywhere. In his last fight, he knocked out Basil Hafez, which is something that Jack Della Maddalena wasn't able to do, which there may have been something to do with Hafez potentially being on some roids in that fight, coming in on short notice. But so like I said, he's undefeated in the UFC. He has some good wins, and he's looked really good in all those fights, which is why he's going to find himself up here. He has crisp boxing. He's got good kicks. He has good wrestling, good takedown defense, and he looks good once the fight gets to the ground. So that's why Oban Elliott is going to find himself here. He's also like really big. Like he looks really big in the cage. I don't know how to explain it other than that. But anyways, let's move on now. Let's not waste too much time. On to number 22, I have Muslim Salikov. Muslim Salikov is really old, so he's probably not going to go too much farther. He's 40 years old, but he still has that little bit of flashiness to him. He's still got some good techniques he's throwing around. Just got a spinning wheel kick over Song Kenan. He's got a win over Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Got a few losses, though, in the UFC. He lost to Randy Brown. He lost to Nicholas Dalby. He lost to Li Jingliang. And then he lost to another fight in his debut. I don't know the guy's name. But, yeah, Salikov's good. He's a good striker. Not so much. He's not so good on the ground, but he's really smooth on the feet, and he has some decent power. He's very flashy, pretty entertaining to watch. Moving on now to the greatest gatekeeper of all time, Neil Magny. Now he's 37 now, so his time's coming to an end as well, probably, especially after what's happened to him in his last 2 fights. He's really well-rounded, but he's not great anywhere. He's got a good clinch game, I would say. Good kind of dirty boxing, good knees in the clinch. And he looks strong in there for being a taller, lankier kind of guy. He looks pretty strong in the clinch most of the time. He got brutally knocked out in his last fight by Carlos Prates, and before that got spinning elbowed and then ground and pounded by Michael Morales. So he's definitely just listen to this. Listen to this. The people he's lost to and the people he's beaten. You'll see what I mean by him just being the gatekeeper, right? So he's lost to Carlos Prates, lost to Michael Morales, lost to Ian Gary, lost to Gilbert Burns, lost to Shavkat, and then some of his wins, he's got like the Leech, he's got Jeff Neal, he's got D-Rod, and Mike Malott. Like just those few wins, like you can see what I mean by like him being the gatekeeper of like the top 15. Like the really truly elite guys are going to beat him, and they're going to push themselves even farther up the rankings. And the guys that are, you know, frauds, if you will, are going to lose to Neil Magny, like Mike Malott did. So that's all I got for Neil Magny. Moving on now to number 20, we have Randy Brown. Randy Brown's really fun. He's tall and long. He's really, really athletic. Throws like these long, wiry shots like this. His straights are really, really, really long. He has great distance control. He's really fast, and he has solid power. And he doesn't have like a bad ground game. He's just not very strong down there. He's a pretty tall guy. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4". So against the guys that are 3, 4, 5 inches shorter than him, they're gonna be a little stronger than him, be able to pretty much do what they want with them on the ground down there. But he is really long. He's really fast. Has great striking. He just got a win. Just got a loss to Brian Battle in a very, very close fight where it kind of showed that he's just not strong. Brian Battle just kind of got him up in the clinch and controlled him there. And it just seemed like Randy Brown didn't really have an answer. He wasn't going to be able to get away from Brian Battle. He was keeping himself off the ground for the most part, but was just unable to do anything in the clinch. Before that, though, he looked great against Zaleski dos Santos. I just cannot say that name for some reason, but looked great against him. Randy Brown got knocked out by Jack Della Maddalena. He's got a loss to Luque as well. Has a win over Muslim Salikov, we just talked about a little bit ago. So not a bad resume. He can still pick up a few more wins, maybe move himself a little higher in this list, but I think this is kind of his range. This kind of 22 to 18 kind of range is probably where he'll stay the rest of his career. Moving on now to the guy that just beat Randy Brown, we have Brian Battle, on a little bit of a win streak right now. He's very entertaining. This guy loves to fight, and he's pretty good on the mic. He had that no contest against Angelusa where he just went off in the post-fight interview, and then suddenly Angelusa was ready to fight again. But yeah, he's a good striker. He's a solid grappler. He's strong. He's got a few submission wins, got a few knockout wins, got a few decisions. He's on a 5-fight unbeaten streak right now. His last loss was to Rinat Fakhretdinov. But like I said, he's just got a win over Randy Brown. Looked great. Knocked out Kevin Jousset in France. Yeah, looked really, really good in that fight. Got on the mic and was saying something about there's no way he was going to lose a fist fight to a French dude, something like that. Really got that crowd riled up. So yeah, he's a great fighter, and he's really good on the mic. I'm a big fan of Brian Battle. So now moving on to number 18, we have Rinat Fakhretdinov. He's got decent striking. It's not great. I assume that he's powerful. Like we haven't seen him like knocking guys out, but he kind of just has that kind of style where he just feels like he would be relatively powerful. And he has good grappling. He definitely lost to Carlos Leal, who we will talk about in a second. I thought 30-27. Somehow they found a way to give him 2 rounds. I have no idea. I thought he looked terrible in that fight, to be honest. He looked great in his fights before. I thought he looked terrible against Carlos Leal. I thought Carlos Leal was kind of big bodying him, beating him up on the feet. Yeah, I don't know how the judges gave that fight to Rinat. He went to a draw with Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, and then he's got that win over Brian Battle. Also, he has that win over Kevin Lee. He put Kevin Lee to sleep with what was it? Was it a Darce? I can't remember. It's been a minute. But anyway, so now moving on. Number 17, we have Carlos Leal. Like I said, he definitely beat Rinat Fakhretdinov. That's one of the worst robberies I've seen in recent memory. I really don't think I can remember one that was that bad. I picked Rinat to win the fight, and was then therefore hoping he would win, and just did not see a way that he won. I had wrote it down already, marked it down on my sheet that I had got that pick wrong when the final bell rang. I just wrote it down that Leal won, and then they gave it to him, and I was shocked. Like, I was absolutely shocked. Leal is super fun. He's really, really powerful. He's strong, and he has good takedown defense. He has great cardio. It seems like he looked great in that Renat fight when in the third round. Still looked fresh. And this guy, like the best way I can describe the way this guy fights to you is he fights like you owe him money and he wants to hurt you. Like I said, he got robbed in that Renat fight and then just beat the fuck out of Alex Morono a few weeks ago. Like, I mean, beat that guy's skull in. Like I said, it looked like Morono stole money from him and Leal was on his way to get it. I don't want to make a cartel joke, but I want to make a cartel joke. I'll let you guys make them on your own. But yeah, Leal came in swinging and just absolutely brutalized Alex Morono. Yeah, so he's going to be really exciting, fun to watch. He's 30 years old, so he's definitely got some more time to keep improving, and he could definitely make a push towards the top 10 of this division. Anyways, now moving on to number 16, I have Vicente Luque. Listen, Vicente's still young, and he's really talented. I have him down this low because of what happened against Jeff Neal. That brain bleed worries me. I know he's came back. He looked great against Temba Garimbo, knocked him down and submitted him in the first round. But he looked like he really was not in it against when he fought Buckley. It just really worries me. I feel like any shot could damage him really badly. I honestly don't know why he didn't retire after something like that. I get he's got to come back and make money, but there's other ways to make money other than risking your life the way Luque is right now. So anyways, we're going to move on now to the top 15, and at the start of the top 15, I have undefeated prospect Michael Morales. He's 17-0, as you see there. He's really big, he's strong, he's powerful. He's got great strike. Well, I wouldn't say great striking. He's got really strong, powerful striking and pretty flashy. He likes to throw a lot of kicks or Superman punches off the cage, a lot of flying knees, stuff like that. He doesn't have like great technique or like great defense, but he gets away with it because he is so powerful. He had a good fight against Max Griffin. Nice win over Jake Matthews, we talked about a little bit ago, and then most recently they were kind of in a clinch, and he broke the clinch with a spinning elbow against Neil Magny, dropped him, got on top, landed some ground and pound, threw both hooks in, took his back, and just ground and pounded his way to a TKO victory. Looked great in that fight. Like I said, this guy is probably one of the most athletic people in the welterweight division right now. He's very entertaining. He's got a fight coming up, I think against Gilbert Burns, which I think Gilbert Burns can win that fight. It's just going to depend on if he looks old or if he gets caught. Because Michael Morales has some type of power. So anyways, now moving on next to number 14, I have Jeff Hands of Steel Neal. Jeff Neal's really good. He's got clean, really slick boxing. He's got some good power on him too. He looked really, really good his last time out there against RDA, which I know RDA is like really old now, but he's way out of his prime. But Jeff Neal looked really, really good in that fight. Before that, what happened before that? I literally can't remember what happened before that. Oh, he lost to Ian Gary. I think that was his last fight out there. He got submitted by Shavkat with one of the most racist feeling chokes I've ever seen. It was a standing rear naked choke, and it just felt like Shavkat was being incredibly racist. That's kind of like that's how I can describe it to you. But yeah, Jeff Neal is really good. Got slick hands, but he's not really getting older, but he's kind of reached his ceiling in my opinion. So that's where he's going to find himself here at number 14. Now moving on to number 13, we have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. This is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in a human being. Stephen Thompson's 42 years old and still just looks great every fight. He's lost a few of his last fights, but he still looks good. Like, he got knocked out by Buckley. I thought he won rounds 1 and 2, and I think Buckley needed that finish. He's so sharp, has such clean kickboxing. He's got great defense, typically. His offense, obviously, unmatched. His kicks, that side kick out of that karate stance, the spinning kicks, he's phenomenal. And he's still doing it at such an old age. So kudos to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Up next, moving on To number 12, we have MVP. I think the only guy that can match Wonderboy striking is MVP. He's got a kind of similar style, except for more. He stays at range a little more. He's less offensive until he lures his opponents in, kind of. Then he'll step in, throw his straight right, throw his flying knees, throw his jab, throw his step in low kicks, does spinning elbows if you're coming in. He is incredibly fast. He's incredibly accurate, and he has good power. It just hasn't really shown so far in the UFC. His biggest issue is he has little to no grappling. He looked terrible on the ground against Ian Gary, and Ian Gary's a guy that we didn't really know at the time. I guess he does have a good ground game. We know that now, but at the time it looked like he was getting out-grappled by a guy who's never been on the ground before. And Gary just dominated him down there, almost submitted him a time or two. So that's MVP's biggest weakness. But I believe personally the MVP loses to nobody on the feet in just a straight kickboxing match. I don't think anybody beats him unless they manage to catch him and put him out like his last fight in Bellator. But anyways, moving on now, number 11, we have Colby Duckington. Now listen, Colby's still good. He's incredibly washed. I don't think Colby was ever truly a dominant elite fighter like some people seem to think he was. He was good, of course. He had great cardio and great wrestling. His striking was never that great. I think Usman was just a great matchup for him. That's why he looked so good in those fights. He's looked absolutely terrible in his last two fights against Leon and against Buckley. Leon kind of just stayed at range and picked him apart. Leon even took Colby down, which was like, what the fuck? And then he couldn't secure a single takedown against Buckley, I don't think. I can't remember exactly. I can't remember I don't think he got any, though. And Buckley was just 2-3 steps ahead of him on the feet and just really beat the shit out of him up until the stoppage. So yeah, Colby Covington at number 11, just because, man, he's definitely washed. Anyways, up next into the top 10, we have number 10, Gilbert Burns. I do think Gilbert Burns is washed, but not as washed as Colby Covington, if that makes sense. I think he's still ahead of Colby. I think he's ahead of Colby Covington right now, but I think he's on his way down at the same time with Colby. He started a great run towards the title in, I think, 2023 before he got injured in that Bilal fight, overtrained himself. I think it was like his third fight of the year, and it was in May, so it was something that was just like absolutely unheard of. Now he's gone 0-3 in his last three with Bilal, JDM, and then that Sean Brady loss. He got ragdolled by Sean Brady. He looked good, had a pretty close fight with Jack Della Maddalena. It was pretty back and forth until the end. Gilbert took his back, and JDM kind of wall climbed, rolled out, got up, and landed the nastiest flying knee as Gilbert tried to re-enter to shoot a takedown. Landed a nasty knee and ended up putting Gilbert out. I think we are seeing the end of Gilbert Burns, which does make me sad. I'm a big Gilbert Burns fan. He's a great guy, family man. I'm a big fan of Gilbert Burns. I just do believe that he is on his way out of the sport now. But we will never forget that Hamzat performance. He made Hamzat look human, which was unbelievably impressive. Anyways, up next, we have Marty Snoozman. Listen, I don't want to put Kamaru this low. He just hasn't fought in so long. Like, it's 294 was his last fight, and we're about to have 314 next month. That's almost 20 pay-per-views. He just hasn't fought in forever, and in those last three fights he looked good against Chimaev. He was able to survive on the ground in round one, and then I thought he probably should have gotten a draw in the decision. I thought he won rounds 2 and 3. But before that, he got pretty pieced up by Leon Edwards, and that loss has just not aged well. Then he was beating up Leon Edwards in the second fight. And then, of course, headshot, dead. Down goes Usman, and down it goes the Usman title reign. Something that I truly will miss, because it was a fun title reign. People like to kind of discredit him, but I think it was a fantastic title reign. He had lots of fun fights. The Masvidal KO was amazing. The Gilbert Burns KO was amazing. both Colby fights were awesome. Then he ended up finishing him in, I think, round 5 of the first fight, then fought to a decision the second time, but they were both absolute wars. Usman always put on a show for us. He was a great champion, and he finds himself at number 9 on the list. So moving on to number 8, we have, this is probably a hot take for a lot of you guys, but at number 8 we have Carlos Prates. This guy is so entertaining, and the biggest thing, like we said, I think in yesterday's video, he's got Fighting Nerds plot armor. This guy's super exciting, like I said a little bit ago. He has that death touch kind of power where it's like just one clean, it doesn't even have to land clean, just a right straight and you're going to sleep. I think it was a left hook against Li Jingliang and you're going to sleep. He one knee to the body, and it literally lifted Charles Radke off his feet and then planted him on the ground, like holding his side curled up like in fetal position, just off of one knee to the body. He's very, very good. Got some good wins, undefeated in the UFC, and he's going to continue. He's got a fight against Jeff Neal, and I believe he'll do the same thing to Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal's very good, but I think he just lands that one shot, and Jeff Neal's going to go right to sleep like it's nothing. Carlos Prates is unbelievable, got insane power, and showed that he has solid takedown defense there against Neil Magny. Looked really good in that fight. Enough glaze. Let's move on to number 7, the loser of last weekend's main event, Leon Rocky Edwards. He's been figured out, simply put. I think he's been figured out. That pressure grappling style is his Achilles heel. He had a huge win streak on his way up to the belt. I think it was something like 9 or 10 fights. Ended up coming in, getting dominated by Usman, landing that head kick in round 5, winning the belt off of him, and then he fought Colby. They both looked like shit in that fight, to be completely honest, but he was defending the takedowns of Colby. Colby just was not Colby in that fight, to be honest. And then obviously got dunked on his head by Bilal. Controlled for a few rounds of that fight, took 2 rounds off of Bilal, lost his belt, and then this weekend just got absolutely ragdolled. Going into that 4th round, I had it scored 30-25, so I thought rounds 2 and 3 were 10-8 rounds for Sean Brady. I think he landed something like 38 strikes to 0 in round 2. Unbelievable performance by Sean Brady, and it just looked like Leon Edwards was just washed, man. He not necessarily that, but just like he's broke. I think Leon's a very mental fighter, and it just seemed like he was broke. Like, when he landed that head kick on Usman, his spirits went up. He got the next win, got the win over Colby, and then as soon as he faced more resistance again from Bilal, he just broke. And I think that's where he's at now. He's down on himself for losing to Bilal. Let himself get ragdolled by Brady. So that's not to take any credit away from Sean Brady. Sean Brady is phenomenal. You'll see him later on in this list. You'll see what I think about Sean Brady. But anyways, moving on to number 6, just outside the top 5, I have Ian Machado Gary. Listen, Ian Gary's very good. He's really sharp on the feet, doesn't have too much power, and he's got a pretty slick ground game. We didn't know this before, like I was just saying earlier, but he's slick on the ground. He took Shavkat's back, threatened rear nakeds. Looked really good in that fight, to be honest. He looked stronger than I expected him to, which I think Shavkat, you'll see what I have to think about, or what I have to say about him in a minute. But yeah, looked great in that fight. Just was the worst fighter on the night. But yeah, he's got some good wins. Beat up Neil Magny really bad. Beat up his legs really bad. Somehow he didn't end up getting a TKO finish off the calf kicks, but I don't know. Had a pretty boring fight against Jeff Neal, but he ended up picking up the victory. And then obviously that Shavkat fight where he ended up losing, but that was a more entertaining fight than I expected it to be honest, to give those guys credit. Moving on now into the top 5, we have Joaquin Buckley. I'm a huge Joaquin Buckley fan, which is not why he's up here, but he's up here because he just beat the shit out of Colby Covington for 5 or for, I think it was stopped in the third or fourth, I can't remember. Just beat the shit out of him. He's on like a 5-fight win streak. Knocked out Wonderboy, which is insane. Knocked out Luque, but like I said earlier, Luque kind of just crumbled. Buckley's fast. He's super fun. He's insanely athletic. He's really strong, if you couldn't tell just by looking at him. He moves, like all of his movements are super explosive, and they're all just powerful, and he's just such an entertaining guy. He's great on the mic. If you haven't gone and checked out his Instagram, he's hilarious. Super powerful, super athletic, like I said. Very good fighter. Great takedown defense, and obviously he's got some of the most powerful boxing you'll find in this division. So he's going to find himself all the way up here at number 5. Moving on now to number 4, the guy that is about to challenge for the belt, Jack Della Maddalena. He has very, very crisp boxing. Probably some of the best boxing, offensive boxing at least, that I've ever watched. He has good defense as well, but his offensive boxing is just phenomenal. The way he just flows in through his combos and stuff is like, it's really a treat to watch. If you haven't gone and watched some of JDM's fights, I would really recommend going back and watch. His last time out, he got that knee knockout over Gilbert Burns. He was scheduled to fight Leon Edwards last weekend. Ended up getting the call to challenge for the belt instead, so obviously did that. Yeah, so he's got a few good wins. He's got like a win over Basil Hafez, which was it's not a great win, but it was tough at the time. He got a win over Kevin Holland. Got a knockout win over Randy Brown, who we talked about earlier. He's a great boxer. He has decent kicks. Just needs some work on the ground. He was getting controlled pretty significantly by Gilbert Burns, which is, I mean, it's Gilbert Burns. He's got some of the best control in the division, but not the best look for the guy that's about to go in and fight Bilal Muhammad. But we'll see how that goes. That's in 2 months. I think it's in May. But anyways, now moving on to the top 3. And at number 3, I have Shavkat Rakhmonov. Probably a lot of people are going to get mad at me for this. I was not impressed with him at all in his last 3 fights. The Jeff Neal fight, I was not very impressed. The Wonder Boy fight, I was very unimpressed. The Ian Gary fight, I was pretty unimpressed. And it's not that he's bad is why I'm saying that, but he's hyped up to be so much better than he is. I think Bedtime always said, if his name was John Smith, then he would just be an average fighter. Nobody would be talking about him like oh, Shavkat's he's going to get the belt and he's going to hold on to it for a long time. I don't think he's that kind of fighter. He's very good. Obviously, he beat Ian Gary. He is really, really good. He's just not who we thought he was coming up. He has that perfect record with finishes, but well, not anymore, I guess. He just went to decision with Ian Gary. But it's just he's got a great ground game. He just struggles to get the fight to the ground. It took him a round and a half to get Wonder Boy to the ground. Now, granted, as soon as he did get Wonder Boy to the ground, submitted him pretty much instantly. But you can't be taking a round and a half to take down a 41-year-old Stephen Thompson and expect me to think you're the best guy in the division. That's just not how it's going to work, right? Anyways, moving on, number 2, I have Sean Brady, the winner of last weekend's main event. He looked phenomenal in that fight. He looked unbelievable, absolutely ragdolled Leon Edwards, a former champion who had dealt with grapplers pretty much his entire title reign. He did him so much worse than Bilal did. Ended up being, I think, the first man to ever submit Leon Edwards. He just looked fantastic in there. And his striking looked very improved, which was why he came up so high on this list. Had he just out-grappled him, dominated him on the ground like that, I probably wouldn't have put him above Shavkat or JDM. But even his striking looked weird. He won round 1 on the feet against Leon Edwards, I thought. So he's going to find himself here at number 2. He does have a loss to Bilal Muhammad, a TKO loss that was a few years ago. He has improved significantly since then. He submitted Kelvin Gastelum, which is not the greatest thing, but still a good win. And then he's got a win over Gilbert Burns, as you can see on the screen there, where he looked fantastic in that fight as well. Dominated Gilbert Burns on the ground. And then, of course, last Saturday night with that very, very impressive dominant win over Leon Edwards. So he's going to find himself right here at number 2 on the list, leaving the number 1 spot for the champion, Bilal, remember the name, Muhammad. I'm a huge Bilal fan. I wasn't before, to be honest. I don't think he's as boring as people say he is. he doesn't have the most power in the world, but he's got great activity. He's got great cardio. His wrestling's fantastic. His control's solid. He doesn't really have the ground and pound or the submission game to complement it, and that's why I think people say he's boring. I think if he added some ground and pound to his game, he would be absolutely deadly. I think he's going to beat Jack Della Maddalena, and then I think Father Time's probably going to catch up to him in his next fight or two. I think he can get a defense, maybe a second defense, but Father Time's undefeated, and I think he will ultimately catch up and be the downfall of Bilal Muhammad. But he looked fantastic against Leon, dominated him, dunked him on his head, did end up giving up his back, I think, in round 3 and getting control of the whole round, and then he was controlling round 5 before he got reversed, and Leon landed that big slicing elbow that caused that big cut on his forehead, I believe. And so they ended up giving Leon that round too, but Bilal won the entire round up until that last kind of ground and pound sequence. So yeah, he's going to find himself at number 1. That is going to be my list for my top 25 UFC welterweights. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, I'd appreciate you guys subscribing, liking the video, drop a comment. Let me know if you guys think I missed anybody towards the back end. If you think my rankings are messed up, if you think you would have this guy over this guy, etc., stuff like that, let me know down below. We'll talk about it down there. I hope you guys enjoyed. Appreciate the view, and I hope you guys have a great night. Peace.